Wrongly accused of a crime he did not commit, the man known as Lobo has been forced to remain in hiding at the secluded shack of the old prospector. When the old man died, he left all of his gold to Lobo, who promised that he would use it to help bring justice to the lawless plains. Now, a friendless, hunted fugitive, Lobo keeps his pledge, ever seeking justice for himself and those like him. The A-Team. I'm Eddie Webb.
I'm Hannibal.
And today we're going to talk about Lobo Issue 2. Hello and welcome to the second and final issue, sadly, of Lobo.
If we really wanted, I guess we could go and try to do that one that came out in the 2000s, but I don't think so.
Honestly, I did do kind of casually start looking for it. It is hard to find, so probably not, sadly, because even the company website doesn't have it listed on their website anywhere. But also, they seem like they're primarily using Facebook as their website, which is always not a great sign either. So. But
although I got to say, hearing our theme music and seeing Lobo makes me think Lobo should now be a space western.
I would love
Lobo
that.
is a space cowboy.
Lobo space cowboy. Let's do it. Make it happen. He can ride a rocket horse.
Trademark. Although I think essentially we're almost ripping off Brave Star at this point in time if we go too far down that ride.
Fair enough. Fair enough. He could have little gold pressed platinum coins with the L on it.
Who would we'd have to have like a little comic sidekick though, like an Orko form to really cement it in that mold.
Nice. But yeah, so we're going to cover issue 2. Basically, I talked about this a little bit last time, but as I understand it, you may know more than I do. But what little research I did was that they drew and scripted issue 1 and immediately moved on to issue 2 because you want to be usually a month or so ahead when you're doing comics by the first one's being printed. We talked about all the various reasons why the first one didn't sell well. It's because of racism. But they decided that they had finished functionally issue 2. And so it didn't actually get printed until 9 months later, until October of 1965, or September 1965. Sorry. And so,
66,
from what I can
right?
tell, huh?
66, right?
Oh, 66, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. 65 was when the first one was printed. My mistake. From what I can tell, the reason why it was printed was because Dell, like other comic book publishers at the time, their printing press was a different company than them, and they had certain standing orders with the printing company, and so I think they had canceled one of their other comics, but still had to have a certain number of comics printed to hit their quota, and so they ran this as an issue to kind of fill that gap while their next comic was getting started.
So it's the whole thing though. Like the more you print, the cheaper the printing generally is, but you're also paying more money because you're printing more stuff.
Right. So this issue was definitely printed with an eye of this comic's existence offsets, made it cheaper for the other comics. So they weren't expecting this one to sell, basically. But it was not written or drawn with that expectation. And so I think it's fair to still judge it as if it were intended to be a full-hearted next issue of a potentially ongoing series for this comic. So it was not like, I guess we'll knock this out. It was done, as far as we could tell, with all good heart and intention. So
I don't know. Well, you know a lot about that part of it. I know some of the other stuff. So I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm just going to enjoy talking about Lobo.
Fair enough. Let's get into it then. So the cover, again, I really love Tellerico's use of color on these covers, because it's a bright red sky, and you'd point out earlier, like the blues and browns of Lobo's outfit actually cause him to stand out more from that bright color. But the man he's fighting, he's got a reds and whites in it, so he actually blends in the background a bit more. But Lobo stands out, which is great for a comic book cover. You have your hero stand out.
Are you referring to the King of the West? Eddie is blending into the background.
Yes, the King of the West, where a bearded man and Lobo fight with medieval weapons on a castle top. You know, the whatever the ceiling castle. What is it called? The areas where they walk. I don't remember. Castle ceiling. Um, but yeah, like they're fighting with medieval weapons, which is also very kind of. Well, I thought this was a western. Why are they fighting with these kinds of weapons? Why is he called the
I do
king?
think for an issue 2, that is a weird move for an issue 2.
Fair. I mean, I do think it's always good to kind of subvert expectations, but I could see your point. Like, if issue 1 is just the origin story, we should have maybe something that's a little closer to a quote unquote traditional, what you saw, traditional Lobo story before you start doing weird things to the formula. But it does get your attention. It's like, huh, that's interesting.
And in my mind's eye, even as I read it, I hear him speaking in a very distinctive British accent saying he's the King of the West.
Oh, God, yes. No. I mean, even though nothing in the comic tells me otherwise, I absolutely believe that this guy's British.
Yeah. Could be, I guess, French, too, if you really want to. Or German.
Fair. Okay, so the first page was the recap I kind of read. We see the first section is called Lobo in the King of the West. So the King of the West
is your first page that, or is your first page Great Dale Comics on sale now? And they have like the Beverly Hillbillies. They've got Alvin and the Chipmunks. They've got Bewitched, Frankenstein, Mighty Mouse, Ghost Stories, F Troop, the comic book, Eddie, and 13 going on 18. You don't have this incredible page?
I do have that incredible page. And actually in my notes, I was going to comment on it. And I said, no, we should probably skip that because talking about the ad is just silly. But no, yes. It is.
This is the last issue.
Yeah. And it's an interesting slice of like what Dell thought in 1966 were their flagship comics, right?
Because in the center of all this, in big, bold letters, Dell, first with the best in comics. Boom, F Troop the comic.
Right, yeah, because it's like 3 of these are spin-offs of television shows. 2 of them are spin-offs of cartoons. 1 is just looks like an anthology comic. I think Ghost Stories is just anthology comics of Ghost Stories. 1 is Frankenstein, but it says Frankenstein meets Mr. Freak, so it implies that it's Frankenstein as a superhero.
You can tell by his outfit.
13 going on 18 seems like kind of an Archie-ish style romance comedy. So it's a lot.
Okay. If you had to pick 3 of these to read as an ongoing subscription for 12 issues, which 3 would you choose? It has to be 3 of them, too.
Mighty Mouse, Ghost Stories, and I'm actually torn between Frankenstein or 13 going on 18.
Intriguing. So not the Beverly Hillbillies, that wouldn't be the one you'd hop on to?
No. Okay. No. And to be fair, Gold Key has told me that 60s tie-in comics are usually terrible, so I just kind of avoid them.
All right, we could be more relevant now if you want to. It'd leave the ad behind.
You don't want to talk about like how this first page just starts the story in like a small panel. It's just funny. Like there's 2 panels in this page. There's a big recap, which very good summarizes the first issue functionally. But then it's like there's a small panel of him, like a little black stick figure talking to Midlight, and then suddenly there's gunshots. There's a boy being escaped in a wagon. Like just the comics like, okay, yeah, we've established everything, but go.
And it's interesting. They've like tripled down on the word Jaspers to describe people. Like,
those Jaspers. Which it feels.
What do you think of the initial coloration of this episode, of this issue versus the first issue? Are these appear the same? They look a little different to you?
It does look a little different, but I can't tell if that's the scan because I mean, obviously we're both working from scans here. And this one, at least mine, is a little the pages are a little more faded and brown, so I think that may be affecting the colors a bit. So it does color seem a bit more muted to me.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how much of that is because of the way the scan is, and then the material they're working from. I did note that his shirt is red, and one thing I do like about Lobo specifically as a comic is they use color very well to help you track character. That's actually how like all of the um, uh, ranchers that we were going through in the last issue, I was able to track them because they all had different color shirts and patterns, and that was
Yeah.
consistent throughout the whole book. And so I was able to keep track. And so like this one, Lobo has a striking red shirt, and so it's gonna be able to kind of easier for him to see him on the page and keep track of him. So I do appreciate that.
It's also a nice recap that they let you know that he's staying in the old timers cabin. They've like cemented
Yep.
like this is that's his bat cave.
Right. Yes. Um, Again, it's a little implausible that like he's talking to his horse and basically recapping the story, which again, right under the already existing recap, a little redundant. Um, but they really want to make sure you understands where this guy's at.
I'm also curious who named it the bottomless canyon. Has anyone been to the bottom? Does it in fact go on forever? Does it go through the planet?
Right. And it's funny, it's not just Lobo, right? Like the kid and the can't also, it's like they're headed for bottomless canyon. I got you. Help! We're headed for bottomless canyon.
But at the same
It's like
time, this is how a lot of the Western TV shows in like the 50s and the 60s were written.
sure, right? Like, um, be- because these comics are so fast paced, I'm actually not that upset that they stiltedly recap things a little bit because
Yeah.
if you accidentally glance over one panel, you might be missing a chunk of the story. It's that dense in that regard.
Like we said before, they're full. It is not something I could have quickly read before we hopped onto a call to do it.
No, I
Good
had to spend
plan.
like half an hour this morning reading it. Um, so we discovered that there's a boy, the boy that's tied up in the wagon that's two horses running loose. I want to emphasize that he is a child because that is important in a minute. But he managed to untie the kids, and says, uh, "Sorry." He jumps onto the wagon as it's running wild, unties him, and then says, "Now we have to jump for it's too late." And so he actually, sorry, he also unhooks the horses
Yes, I was going to say
and
that if you
unties the
didn't.
child. The horses, it's a subtle detail, but like he's pulling on the reins. And he says, "I got to get to the boy," and they goes to the wagon going off into the canyon, which, to be fair, we cannot see the bottom of. Uh, but there are no horses attached to it. They're on one side of the panel, kind of pulling off the edge, and them jumping off the wagon. So, like again, you have to really read a lot between the lines of the panels of where the action's actually going on.
And those three panels are great action beats too. You get like the leap onto the wagon,
Hmm.
the undoing the horses, and the pair of them leaping off over the canyon. And the wagon's already over the canyon, falling in before Lobo's leaping off of it. So it shows you how tense it is.
And another thing to note is like I don't think there were any, or at least if there were very few action lines in the last issue, right? A lot of the speed was done by how they were functionally cutting between panels and allowing us to deduce action between. For these three panels of this getting off the wagon, there's lots of action lines, which kind of help really reinforce in this specific comic that it's that there's so much action, there's so much going on that we do have to put some action lines in to really reinforce that. Whereas other parts, the speed was like how fast you drew a gun or how fast you did a thing, and action lines weren't used for that. So it's an interesting way that they decided at this point in time to put action lines in.
Yeah. And when we get to see
Um,
the kid, he is in fact a kid in this panel.
yes, in this panel, he is a child still, the yellow shirt, and it asks who put him in there, and it turns out it was the King's men. They ran him off his place and tried to kill me. So he owns a place, or his family owns a place, a little unclear. but he immediately recognizes Lobo as Lobo. It's like, you're Lobo, you're on wanted posters. Why are you helping me? And Lobo's like, whatever. Tell me about the king. Who's the king?
Does Lobo look a little lighter in these issues? And I wasn't sure if it's like because the issues are faded from the scans that we have, or if it was like an actual choice by the people that did it.
It does seem like it differs from page to page. So I'm more inclined to say this is probably a printing problem,
Okay.
right? Because like if you look on this page, we can have a nice solid side thing. Different parts of his face and my skin are lighter and darker. So that, I mean, it looks like it's a way to print it or way the ink faded in different ways. And then on page 3, he does actually look almost like a little bit oranger. But then he also the white characters also look a bit more orange. So I think that was just again how it's printed or how the colors faded. So I'm inclined to chalk it up to that's how the colors faded.
Cool.
So we find out that he's referring to someone who calls himself the King of the West. He's got a castle and everything. So already we see why there's a castle on the cover. And he's trying to run everybody else out so he can have the land for himself, which is becoming a very common Western plot as we go through this run of like evil rich guy who wants the land for himself, probably because there's a train coming through.
Well, it's not even that. If you go historically, land ownership is. We can get into a whole discussion about redlining and how the fact that is where a lot of wealth is, and redlining stopped Black people from being able to own property. So that means they could never have as much generational wealth as white people.
Right. No, I mean it's a valid reason to have that plot line. But this goes to something we talked about a little bit in the first issue, where is that this is, I don't want to call them stock Western storylines. Instead, it's going through storylines that people who are fans of Westerns would recognize and then putting a Lobo twist on them.
And part of the thing is, we're not at the end yet, but I would want to talk about how would you expand this out if it was going to be an ongoing series. But we'll come to that when we get to the issue. Because that was something I was curious about reading through this again now from a Speechless Lens.
The kid's explaining the story, and then he gets shot. Blam! And he's lying on the ground. And then it's like, you've been shot. And Lobo's like, lie still. I've got an idea. And because of this is still a kid's comic functionally. And so the violence is very early Western in terms of, we're nowhere near spaghetti Western levels of violence, right? So like, we don't know, we just see a blam and him saying ow, and then him falling down, right? So where he's been shot is incredibly unclear. I figured he was dead. And I was just like, page 3, we've murdered a child. What the hell, Lobo? You really don't care about issue 2. Like, fuck it. Put whatever we want in here. No one's buying it anyway.
I like Lobo's logic that he's hoping it was a lucky shot as he runs through like a hail of bullets towards midnight.
Right. And he does say in passing, the bullet that nicked you. And it's like, okay, you did not murder. Panel 4 explains that panel 2 did not actually murder a child. But still, for 2 panels, I was worried. But yeah, Lobo literally just dodges 3 bullets on that panel. And so does Midnight, for that matter. Midnight also dodges 3 bullets. And then Midnight's half the horse I think he is. He'll know what to do, which already Midnight is sliding into comet territory, right?
I thought we'd already established that first issue.
We established that Midnight was a named horse and a good horse, but we're now moving into the horse is smart. And that
Why else would Lobo have conversations with his horse, Eddie, if it couldn't neigh back at him?
Well, they can get a good conversation around here with my horse. And even better, the next page, the Midnight writes up on him, and the next guy screams, a devil horse!
The horse uses horse foo, Eddie.
And the horse kicks him.
That's not a kick. It is like both leg hooves up in the air. Like it. I don't know if a horse has a knee or a shin, but that looks more like a knee to the face is what that horse.
It does look like, he kneed him in the face. That's true. And then another guy tackles Lobo off of his horse. Lobo punches him again with his left hand, so we've now firmly established that Lobo is ambidextrous, and then pile drives him into the ground.
Yes. But as I was reading this, I think this was going to be your favorite panel in the whole comic because he's using wrestling moves.
Yes, love it. Love it. And he's like, if you want any more, I'd be glad to oblige. I'm like, nope, we're good. Thank you. And so we get a panel of all of their guns in a pile with them riding off, and the kids, I use the term loosely, saying, why'd you let them go? And Lobo explains that he wants the king. He wants to know who the king is. And he can't let them know they can't run roughshod or peaceful folk. And we see the kid on the horse, and he looks like he's 50.
So we didn't comment on the previous panel with Lobo when he first jumps in, where Lobo has its lightish green head that looks Hulk sized on his body.
Yes.
And then to your point, though, that kid suddenly aged like 40, 50 years between panels.
Right. And it's not even like there's a couple of straight lines here. Like, he also like is balding. Like, there's a chunk of his hair that is gone. He looks like a different character, but he must be the same character, both because of the dialogue and because he's wearing the same yellow shirt. We've talked about the shirts are a way to track characters, so it's clearly meant to be the kid, and the artist just got it wrong.
And he's holding his arm where he got nicked by the bullet.
Right. And Lobo even says, you gotta get that arm looked at. And later, the wounded rancher arrives to the small town, right? So he's not a child; he's a rancher.
Yeah.
So like
Eddie, being in a gunfight turns you into like an adult, is what it does.
Clearly, I'm a man now. But as the rancher arrives, because he's the boy rancher, whoever, yellow shirt, he's riding midnight into town because there's no other horses. But they recognize the horse immediately. They be like, "Oh, that's the devil horse." I mean, they don't say that, but that's Lobo's horse. I recognize it, and we're going to follow him because there's a reward. And so Lobo's like, looks like, a couple strays looking for me, and he says, "Tweet." Now, later in the comic, I have found out from context that's supposed to be him whistling for midnight, but it does look like in 2026 going, I'm going to tweet this.
You've jumped over how smart Midnight is. The boy / man / rancher / wounded yellow shirt person rode Midnight from where Lobo was into town.
Right. And
then Midnight alone came back and found Lobo. How Comet comes and finds Briscoe.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And Midnight, and then, to be fair, right, in that panel, he hauls ass too. It's like, I'm out of here. I'm in trouble.
So I think my new thing is I'm going to call out when people owe people money, and Briscoe County Jr. owes Lobo, comic creator, some money.
Fair enough. And so Lobo uses an old trick he learned, which is his riding sideways trick, which we saw last issue. So like a nice continuity there. But then it raises the question. So he's riding sideways on the horse to go by the bounty hunters. And we see the next page, we get a panel of Lobo, whose face is weirdly purple, hanging up the side of the horse, and they're looking dead at Midnight and going, that horse don't know where he's going. Look, he's heading back the other way. He's nowhere around. It's like, but you can see his arms around Midnight's neck.
No.
But then Lobo...
Eddie, it's like in Wonder Man, when Damar touched the ooze and sort of disappeared. Lobo's arm over there has gone into Midnight, because Midnight's like the ooze.
Fair enough. I see. So Midnight is just basically made of living shadows. I mean, he's Devil Horse.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, not fair. That's fair.
They should change his name to Shadowfax.
I see you should there. So Lobo gets back on horse with his gun. And says, don't shoot us. It's like, bounty hunters aren't worth shooting. Throw down those guns. And he pulls a tactic from Buck and the Preacher, which comes out after this comic, where he steals their boots so they can't run off.
Or I thought you were going to say Red Sun.
I think they both did it, but yeah. And the king's looking for you.
He doesn't just pull him off, Eddie. He drops him over the side of the cliff.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, so he throws them away. So Lobo starts riding towards where the king is. He sees that the king's actually burned someone's home. And so Lobo goes to help, but yet the homesteaders, who were white, are like, he ain't one of us. And the man says he's just as he ain't one of them. Apologies. She's like, he ain't one of them. It's nobody's just as bad. He's Lobo, a wanted man. So it's, we've talked about before, like, it opens up a space where you could read these things as just straightforward Western narrative, or you can read the racism into these lines if you wanted to. Both reads are viable without invalidating either interpretation, which again I continue to really enjoy about this comic.
Looking more and more at the artwork as we go through, it does feel like there was less care for this issue than there was for that one.
I think that's fair, honestly. It may have been a case of they realized it was getting canceled, and so they kind of just said, well, we'll just finish this, I guess. But I don't know. The composition is still really strong. You know, I mean, again, it's extremely easy to follow the story. Again, just super weird, like people's faces change and stuff like that. But anyway, so Lobo explains to the ranchers what's going on and gives them Lobo money, which is his cryptocurrency as far as I'm concerned. Let's see, Lobo coin.
He gives them enough to rebuild everything, not just for them, but like for the other farmers too. Other ranchers, sorry.
Right, yeah. It's a hat full of gold coins. And Lobo's like, money's not the answer, but sticking together is. That gold will help you get a fresh start in the meantime. So very heroic, very money doesn't matter. Money's just a tool as part of my larger goal for justice and revenge, which I continue to enjoy. I continue to like that. I don't care about wealth for its own sake, but I do care about wealth as a tool to help me and help others.
Like Batman.
Like Batman, except for, not. But he tells the other ranchers to meet him at Sunset Gulch, which is by the bottomless canyon. I don't know. The geography is weird about all. I don't know where everything's at, but
I am now curious how much gold that old timer found, because Lobo's dropping like bags of gold left and right, which is destroying the economy, by the way, completely. So I want to know how much he has, but that's like the game designer in me thinking about that from a game perspective.
Oh, just on this page, we have a hat full of gold, and 2 panels later, another bag of gold, which it fits his fist, right? So it's another big fat thing of gold. Yeah, so like, the gold is devalued completely. I mean, and so he buys 2 rifles, bag of black powder, and 50-pound bag of flour. And as soon as he said gunpowder and flour, I was like, I think I know where this is going, just because I am also a gamer and I know stupid things about explosives. But I like how a 60s kid's probably is going to go, that's a weird combination of things to buy, Lobo.
Yeah. That's when we get Ride Midnight. Yahoo!
Yahoo! Yep. And then the prospector in yellow shirt, who's now settled on being 30 years old, I think, is like, I'm going to help you. So he comes along with him, and they go to Sunset Gulch, and sure enough, Lobo puts the black powder into the sack of flour, and he talks about how being a soldier taught him a lot of things. And the kid's like, I don't understand, but I hear hoofbeats.
Which in itself tells you a little story there too, because that means a kid didn't serve in the war.
Right. They are doing a good job of establishing Lobo's skills as stemming from his time as a soldier. And so it continues to have a nice narrative of confluence of he doesn't want to kill anymore, but the skills he's using to keep himself alive and to fulfill his mission do come from the time he did kill. So like it's
Yeah.
subtle, but it is there. Um, Again, the horse trick, he made a reference to it being a Native American trick, but that doesn't invalidate that he didn't learn it as part of his cavalry training. As we
Yeah.
were kind of assuming he's cavalry, so it could be both of those things. Doesn't necessarily invalidate that.
And the use of the guns that he bought as a distraction.
Right. So he puts the flower with the black powder on the end of a board, and then he tells Midnight to stamp on the other end of the board to shoot the flower grenade at the ranchers or the rustlers, and it explodes conveniently in front of them in a way that does not kill them. But I'm pretty sure they should be dead.
It's old Westy gunpowder. It sounds effective, Eddie.
Right. It took me a minute. I had to read this a couple times, and I realized I think what they're shooting for is that the flower poof out, and it's they can say I can't see, and so like it's supposed to be kind of like a smoke bomb, right?
Which is why the guns in the mountains worked, because otherwise they say there's nobody up there with them.
And so I was in a weird place where it's like I thought it was just going to be explosive because I know flour is actually explosive. Right? And it's like, they should be dead. Especially because he put that gunpowder into a can, and so the shrapnel combined with the actual flour should have been just a shrapnel grenade. Right? But I also know that comic book writers' grasps of physics in the 60s was loose at best.
Magneto can do everything they said he could do in the comics.
The miracle of magnetism, Chris.
It is funny, though, talking about this today, given that I was reading Dungeon Crawler Carl earlier today.
So
and it was the part of the book. I'm enjoying it, actually. The part of the book where he essentially uses gunpowder and a whole bunch of like metal and stuff he puts on top of the gunpowder to try to find an enemy with.
Yeah, he makes an IED based functionally, yeah.
So, I'm probably like 16 chapters in the book. I highly recommend it.
Good, yeah. We were on the if you come to the Discord, we were discussing it earlier, and we were like, I'm not sure, and then I gave him a chance, and then we're both enjoying it. So hooray for that!
I did have to like check my designer brain though, because I'm trying to do all the math and stuff. I was like, I can't do that. Just enjoy it.
No. Once how I figured, we're digressing, but how I got around it was I realized that the game mechanics are completely made up and arbitrary just to hurt people. Again, more similar to like the Running Man, where the game show things are completely arbitrary to inflict pain on people. And once I realized that, then I could shut my brain off because like, oh no, that's supposed to make sense. Cool. All right.
Damn.
But anyway, speaking of things that make sense, exploding flower. So he puts their hands up, and he says, they got us surrounded. And I was confused at this point in time because there's a bunch of shadows of things sticking out, which looks like they're supposed to be. I'll tell the boys up there behind those rocks to start firing their rifles. I'm like, who are these people? Are these the people from the town?
Are you serious? That question?
Yeah. Is there a panel I missed?
The whole thing was like when the yellow shirt shows up, he says no one else is going to help, and Lobo's like, that's okay. That's why they put the guns up there, and that's why they use the cloud to create a distraction to confuse them. So they're bluffing about having people they're going to shoot from the gun tower.
Okay, because I did see them put 2 rifles down, but now that I'm looking at the panel again, I do see like he bought 2 rifles, but again, you have to really pay close attention. Under his arm, there are like 3 or 4 stocks I now see.
Yeah.
So, I now get what's actually going on there. Okay. But again,
so the powders was confuse them like a flashbang. So they go, I can't completely see, but I do see some good stuff.
Right. Okay, no, that makes sense now.
So it goes back to learning strategy and tactics in the army versus just being like a gunslinger.
Yeah, I mean, Lobo's really clever. There's like a dash of MacGyver in here, for like a better term, right? It's like this. It's the taking these resources and finding interesting and creative ways to not use guns.
It's almost like if he has a plan, he could beat anybody. Kind of like Batman.
I'm Batman.
So when you said something that didn't make any sense for physics-wise, I thought you were inferring to when he pushed a Lobo coin to the guy's head. And the coin obviously stayed for the whole ride back to the castle. Because his hands are tied. He can't take him off.
Yeah. See, when I first saw it, I thought he had burned the coin like onto his head. And I'm like, wait, but the thing is the wrong way around. Then I saw it, oh no, it's gold, so it's just stuck to his head. So I'm like, even if you put a playing card in someone's head, that falls off after a minute, you know? So
Burn. Jesus, what comic are you reading?
I
don't like to hurt people, but let me superheat this coin for your forehead.
I may have read a lot of shadow novels when I was younger, so maybe I have a certain perspective of how these things go. Or, I mean, to be fair, to go back to, we can't go back to it because we haven't talked about that episode yet. I was making a Billy Zane reference, and I realized I can't do that yet. So anyway,
you can, it just wouldn't make sense to anybody.
Right, exactly.
And shows him that we record out of order. Way to go, Eddie! You gave away secrets.
Anyway, so he slaps the horses thing and says, like, I will never use my guns in anger, but don't tell him, but you never know what to do if I'm pushed too far, which again, I like, right? It's pretty clear at this point in time, his gimmick is he won't use guns. But given how they have used this character in the issue and a third, issue and a half that we've gone so far, I do genuinely believe that he might at some point in time. I know he won't because that's the conceit of the comic, but I occasionally allow myself to forget in a way that is fun for me. Not, as opposed to, like, say, when Batman's in a death trap, right? It's like, I know he's not going to die. There's nothing interesting about this. Whereas this is like, will Lobo actually slip and use his guns this time? Will he be pushed too far? I do care about that. And I think that is a possibility. Although if there were like 100 issues of this, maybe I'd be less inclined to think that.
You would have probably shot somebody with that.
Right. I mean, I would hope so. And again, they do a good job of, like, right after he says that, there's him talking to the rancher who's now 37. But there's the way that it's composed, it's his hand by his gun again, and his hand's like right next to the gun, not to draw it, but just kind of where his hand's naturally landing. But our eyes drawn back to the fact that he's still wearing guns. He's talking about guns. So, like, subconsciously or maybe metaphorically or whatever, he's still that close to drawing, So again, it's a really nice way to kind of keep that tension simmering. And so it's
is his catchphrase not hit it or let's ride, but ride midnight Waaahooo every time he gallops off on midnight?
Waaahooo. He does the Waaahooo a lot in this issue. I noticed that. But they're like, how can we help you, Lobo? And Lobo's like, I can take care of myself. Yahoo! Rides off. Then we go to parts. We go to the posse, the next part. And where the king is not taking defeat easily, and he's looking at the coin that was put in the guy's head. So proving your point, that coin stayed in his forehead the entire ride.
And if we look at the guy, he does not have a burned Lobo insignia on his head.
You're right.
So
that's fair. That's fair.
He's not Lobo the demon wolf.
I will point out that the guy in the previous page was wearing a purple shirt, and the guy running away from the king is wearing a green shirt. So it could be a different person, but I don't think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to be the same person. So you're probably right.
I could go even further. The guy in the purple shirt, Eddie, is the one he's talking to that doesn't have a burn insignia in his head either. If you look up in the corner, that little bitty face up there, barely in panel, like, hello, I'm here too.
So the king kicks over a footstool and is mad about this, and he says he wants to take care of Lobo permanently within the law, which again is another storyline we've seen of evil people in power exploiting and using the law, twisting the law to their benefits, as opposed to true justice, which transcends the law. Again, from a Western epic perspective, this makes sense, even though in real world, obviously, that's not how that works. So he wants to make him the most wanted man in the territory. And this little token's going to help. And he says, I love this line. Makes want my territory. That's how. And this little token's going to give me help. Get me some bullets. Not guns. Not people to shoot them. Just I want a whole bunch of bullets to hold in my hand. It's like, such a weird request.
Because he's British, and British people don't have guns, so they don't understand how they work. They just think we throw bullets at people.
In the 1800s, British people absolutely had guns, but I see your point.
I just like the fact that it has a chemistry set super close by where you can get to work right away.
Yes. And I also he decides to make fake Lobo coins, and what he does, he actually makes lead coins that then wraps them in foil gold. And like again, being savvy, aware of how these stories work, I was like, okay, the fact that they're not real gold coins is going to be his downfall. But because he is rich, he is therefore cheap, and will not actually plunge for full gold coins. And that seems perfectly logical to me. I'm not at all upset about this. Of course he's cheap, because that's, how would you get rich if you spend money on useless things like making actual gold coins to frame this vigilante when you could just use lead coins? Never undercut your plan. Invest in good materials if you're trying to overthrow someone. I cannot stress that enough. Do not go cheap when you're trying to. Yes, he is.
What makes you think that he has wealth?
He's got a whole bunch of land. He's a king. He has a castle.
He stole that land from people by killing them or burning down their shit. It doesn't say he purchased it from him.
So where did he get the castle from, Chris? IKEA?
That would be super cool if IKEA did sell castles. God, Eddie, can you imagine all the people that buy a castle and then spend the next 10 years trying to assemble that motherfucker?
Yes.
It's like, damn it, that the East Wing doesn't go there.
What do you mean E7? E7's not even in this box. So they proceed to blow up a bank, rustle some cattle, throw a brick through a store window, and they leave the coins around so everyone believes that Lobo is the person who does them. And man, is that not a rapidly de-escalating level of crimes, right? It's like, I'm gonna blow up a bank. Okay, cool. Rustle some cattle. Fair. I'm going to throw a rock through a window and steal a saddle. Okay, we're really running out of options already, huh?
I love that. That, like, the sheer level of pettiness that would be involved if that was really Lobo doing that. Oh, I love it so much. Because it's not like there's a glass blower nearby. And he even says, I got like order out to get a new glass window. It's going to take weeks. Right. That is so beautiful.
No, it's like, I at the time I was like, yeah, like, haha, that's kind of funny. Spoiler alert for a slightly minor plot point later on, but like Lobo sees the guy wearing a saddle, and so it really ends up reading as the king just said, go out and commit crimes. And one guy's like, I really like that saddle, and that guy never sold it to me, so I'm gonna steal a saddle and blame Lobo for it because I want a cool saddle.
And on one hand, you could almost maybe understand why the townsfolk are like, well, Lobo's been giving out gold left and right. He can't have that much left.
Right.
Maybe.
But, and again, like, it's a page from going, we think Lobo's great, to, well, fuck Lobo, but it's a fast-moving comic, so I was like, fine, I can kind of get that.
That's how social media works right now, Eddie. Why would you think it would work like that in a comic book?
I mean, fair. That is entirely true. How's the street doing again? Is it open or closed? I forget. So they want to ask the sheriff to hang Lobo. And the sheriff's like, oh, I can't do that. So we got to catch him first. And to do that, we got to organize. So I'm going to deputize you all, and we're going to catch Lobo. And say, cool, great. We're going to do that. And the king is like, yes, success. They're going to go deal with Lobo, and my hands are clean. And his people are like, I got to score a settle, so I'm going to jump with that posse. And I'm like, immediately I see the flaws in this plan, right? It's like, the king is like, I want Lobo taken care of within the law. I have my hands off. And the guy's immediately, his guy who works for him that was sent back to him by Lobo goes, I want to go defeat him. And he's like, sure, no problem. It's like, you don't think that this conflict of interest will be obvious? Your whole goal is to have it not be tied to you, and then the guy who works for you is gonna go kill Lobo.
But it's posse logic. No one will ever
Right.
no one will ever question that.
But the reason why I buy this is because it seems like the guy who gets him gets a piece of the reward. So again, he's that specific kind of greedy asshole. He went cheap on his coins and he wants a piece of the money. So sure, why not? Lobo misses all of this. He's unsuspected by it, but he still wants to investigate what's going on. So he goes and he disguises himself as a poor worker, and rides old Barney, a donkey that was he in the last issue? I don't remember him being in the last issue at all. Was he?
He was
Was the
like there, I think there was a
donkey?
panel.
Okay,
Yeah, it's like a panel with him.
To be fair, like the way for all the gold old timer left me, I think old Barney here is worth twice as much. So it's a nice way of reminding you. It's probably part of the stuff he got from the prospector. Was like, all this gold and this house and also this donkey. So like it does. It was just me going. I could go back and check. It's probably there, but I don't remember it. But it didn't bother me. It's like, of course he also has donkey. Why wouldn't he? Sure, that makes sense.
And he even wears the prospector's old clothes too, like to sort of cement his disguise.
Right.
And I do like the point that he specifically points out that like it's not bad living by yourself. It's just that I have to disguise myself to get supplies. Right. There's a whole lot of stuff playing there too, because that plays into the fact that white people frequently just look past black people, so they all look the same.
That was exactly my thought. Is like, again, you can read this as Lobo is good at disguise, or white people, have trouble distinguishing black people because they don't consider them worth trying to distinguish. And so, like, both of those are valid reads, and neither one invalidates the story. So, like, again, a really nice way of digging into that.
And what I like even more is like on the next one when he talks to the sheriff specifically, the sheriff, who has been a fairly just person up till now, that added a layer of complexity to the sheriff because he didn't realize that was Lobo. So he did the same thing, but he's treating him nicely. So there's something to play with there too. If we're aiming for a slightly older demographic than what the comic is.
Right. So it's a comic that adults or young adults could read and get something else out of it. But kids are going to go, oh, look, Midnight's doing a fun thing. It works really, really well. So Lobo finds out about the plan, calls Midnight back from a million miles away, as far as I can tell, because Midnight is back at the prospector's house, hears the whistle, and runs all the way to where Lobo is.
Because Midnight is more than half the horse that Lobo knows him to be.
And so Lobo gets up. So he takes the outfit and ranges it with a stick onto Barney, and has him ride up. And so the guy's like, "Hey, sheriff, there's the prospector we saw. Maybe he's seen Lobo." And it's like, "Wait, that prospector was Lobo." At this point, I'm like, I actually had to read this a couple times because I'm like, you saw the guy, you didn't think he was Lobo. He walks away, comes back, goes, maybe he saw Lobo now, realize that he's a dummy, and go, that must have been Lobo. And for a second, I was like, that makes no sense. And I realized, oh no, this guy maybe has literally only seen two black people his entire life. So if it's not one, it must be the other.
Oh, God, that's so bad.
I mean, so yeah, it's the either you can read it as he made a leap of logic make sense, or again, the slightly more edgier interpretation, and both work. So Lobo tries to escape with a Midnight, and so Lobo, while riding Midnight, jumps off a cliff into a river.
No, Eddie. It's just not riding Midnight. It says riding at full tilt. So they're like booking, and we understand Midnight is like Quicksilver fast.
Yes. And he does say Yahoo before he gets into the river.
Oh, I love this comic.
And then people say, no one could survive a jump like that. And he's right. No one could survive a jump like that. That horse's legs should be shattered.
We know that's not true because even we saw in a movie, the Valley of Guanji showed us that you could leap off of tall anything with horses. Technically, historically, there was also like a woman that would jump off stuff with horses.
Yeah, yes, I know. I understand that. But there's a difference between jumping a trained horse in controlled circumstances into a water and a horse diving into a raging river. But, again, Midnight is devil horse, sorry. So that's fine. Because here it does say we have to get out of this current. So that is a river that's moving and moving strong enough that they have to get out of it. But he does ride, and again, another Yahoo here. I think it's the fourth Yahoo at this point.
And the panel, though, of them stepping up out of the water, I really love because it shows you occasionally like how some of the water's coming off them and it's dripping. It's really cinematic. It's gripping almost.
No, totally. And the posse makes their way back, but Lobo beats them there. He's standing on the roof. It's like, but you drowned. And again, I buy this because like every time we saw the posse, they were kind of just sitting on the horses or looked at the horses were very slow moving. Whereas every time Lobo's like Midnight's all out, hard rolling. So like, it makes sense that, they're kind of just casually looking around, seeing where everything's at. But he's like, I gotta rush to get there. So I think it actually works.
I totally buy it because they would have no reason to like race back to town.
Right. Yep. It's like, we found these coins, and it's like, they aren't mine. And it's like, oh no, you're right, they're lead. And he bites it, which is again the traditional test of gold. And it's like, it's lead. They know somebody else. Which like again, like the sheriff's like, he genuinely wants justice done. And it's like, hey, you've given me information that changes my perspective on things, right? And given the tone and nature of this comic, we're not going to dig into okay, so these coins are leads, but that's actually not actual evidence against him having done this. But then it opens up the Pandora's box of it wasn't evidence for either. So like the whole case was just hanging on really flimsy circumstantial evidence. And Lobo could have easily won that in court if he decided to go to it.
You're thinking of a just fair court, Eddie. That is not.
But the fact that the sheriff's willing to listen to reason and it seems to be conducting something vaguely something investigation opens up the idea of fair litigation in a way that otherwise I would not even care about. So, but I do like the fact that he immediately jumps to logic of there's literally only one villain in this comic that it could possibly be. So if it's not you, it must be the King's Man.
It's the fact that the guy that stole the saddle is literally one of the ones there in town with him.
The guy that the king sent to get a chunk of the reward is also literally using the stolen saddle while trying to hunt down Lobo.
This is a good piece that they also have in video games where if you go into some towns, so Kingdom Come 2 has a great mechanic for this. Like if you steal something, you need to leave town with it. Eventually, it will become unhot and you can go back to that town to sell it. But if you come back into town within that window, people know that you stole it because it's fucking theirs. They remember it and it's missing.
I have totally stolen stuff from shops, left until my meter went down, come back and sold them back the exact same thing I stole from them. Yes.
In case people are curious, I'm really in a video game playing mode right now.
I had noticed.
Mentioning all the different games I'm
playing. So they capture the guy and question him, and he's like, "Let's get Lobo." It's like, "Cool, where's Lobo?" He's gone because Lobo is booking. Because again, like Midnight does not go anywhere slowly. Midnight goes everywhere at warp speed.
It's almost like some other hero that just vanishes whenever people turn around.
Lone Ranger? No. What's the other one here? There's a guy, Man-Bat, right? Man-Bat. So Lobo's riding off because Yahoo, let's ride. So yeah, now that you pointed it out, I can't stop seeing Yahoo. I somehow missed that when I read this, but now it's like every 5 seconds, Yahoo!
Oh,
That wasn't in the first issue that much, was it? I mean, it's
I
definitely this
don't think
issue.
it was, because it stuck out to me here as I was reading it. By like the third time I saw it, I was like, that was a rapid succession of the word Yahoo.
Right. Okay, so we move to the next part, which is Showdown. And again, the narration kind of just talk about the king is like now just furious and wants to deal with Lobo, and Lobo's the only one who can stop his evil quest. And so Lobo is just now there, just at the castle. But I actually like the structure because by having that little bit of a caption at the top, even though the caption's not telling you anything really different, by reading it, you're slowing down to read it, and so you're making mental time for Lobo to get to the castle.
Yeah.
So, but the act of making you read, you're time flows at your own pace in comics. But by putting that stop there, that big yellow bar, then it feels natural that he's there. But if it had just been the next panel was he was there, that would feel very jarring. So it's a nice way to kind of break up the action.
It also helps our page count.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it does. And so Lobo walks in as the king with a mace, swings and shatters his chair. It's like, I'm ready for this fool. And then I realized, as I was saying all of this, that the guy walking in has a red shirt, is black, and it has sideburns just like Lobo, but it turns out he's not actually Lobo. He's supposed to be one of the king's men.
It's not only that, he also has like that white bandana too that Lobo has.
Yes.
And the same sort of mutton chop cut Lobo has. So that is when I realized that I think they didn't care as much about this comic as they did the other one.
Yeah. No, yeah, because like I just now realized that's actually not supposed to be Lobo, because I was about to make a snarky comment about how he teleports back outside, but that's just a fuck up.
Yeah.
Because these two Jaspers, again, they see us. Rebecca the King wants to meet me, so like basically they come out, lower a drawbridge, and bring him in to meet with the king. And
they lower a drawbridge.
Lobo rides Midnight over a drawbridge. Like they're in the castle, and he's like riding Midnight through the castle, which is just fantastic. Love it. No notes. And then the king says, "You're a strange man, Lobo." Yeah, I think we got that, King. Thank you. I could have killed you a second, but you know I won't, because it's a job I want for myself. And then he said, and Lobo says, "Hold my horse." Which is just like, hold my horse second, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass. Love it. Love it.
Oh, everything about this is ridiculous. I love it.
And so he's like, I heard you don't use guns, so find another way to take it out. And so we're going to use weaponry. We're using medieval weapons. And it's interesting because, like, at first I was like, but wait a minute. It's not that they won't use guns, so they won't kill. But then next page, Lobo has a thought balloon where he says, I swear not to kill unless I'm forced to. So it's King misunderstanding Lobo's legend, which I actually like, right? Yeah. Lobo's legend's been building up a certain way, and he's not getting all the nuances, which is how these legends work, right? He's not going to get the nuances. So it's a nice juxtaposition of the legend of Lobo versus Lobo the man in a very short space.
100%.
So he shows up how skilled the king shows how skilled he is by throwing an apple in the air, and shooting it with a crossbow. And then Lobo, who has never used a spear in his life, by his own admission, jumps onto a flagpole, grabs a spear, and then pole vaults and makes a polecat joke while doing it.
The fact that he's using a spear, though, doesn't sit right with me.
Fair, but he also gets rid of it pretty fast. He then moves on to the mace.
You forgot about Maria, though, who came in bearing the fruit.
Oh, yes.
For the King of the West.
Because Maria is going to be very useful, very important in about 3 pages. And by very important, I mean not all important. But yes, so Lobo grabs an axe. The king has a sword. Lobo breaks the sword with. Sorry, Lobo has a mace. He breaks the king's sword with his mace. The king picks up a cat of nine tails, although it's only three. Um, Lobo picks
I
up,
think that's a flail, right?
or maybe it's flail. You're right. Sorry.
Cat of nine tails has different connotations about what Lobo and the king are going to do, Eddie.
I mean, what happens in the castle stays in the castle. Lobo picks up a shield to block the flail. The king picks up another crossbow, which seems to have 5 arrows in it.
This is like a Green Arrow, Hawkeye fucking kind of bow is what this is. That is the other ridiculousness of it.
So what I love is that, I mean, the whole thing is going through just random weapons from D&D module, even though D&D wasn't out yet. Going through all of them, and then, yeah, you're right, he pulls the Green Arrow shit, and then Lobo defeats it by kicking over a table. Right? Says, I have a elaborate crossbow. I'll fill the whole area full of it. And Lobo's like, table.
Because they're arrows. Green arrow. I understand the TV show makes Ollie look like a badass. It is literally a fucking bow. I'm sorry, but yeah.
And then Lobo is forced to draw a gun, but he uses it to shoot a chandelier down, which is perfect. And then
I did the same move when I was playing 7C back in the day.
Oh, you shot down a chandelier?
Yeah, on the bad guy.
Nice. And so the king's like, finally, he's like, I can't take it anymore. And just shoot him, to his men. Just shoot him. I don't care. And then Lobo uses what I think is a grappling hook on a very long rope.
It's got to be.
Because he's whipping it around, and it's not clear what it is, but like in the second panel where he's knocking the guns out, it looks like the things hitting the guns is a grappling hook, although it's very sketchily drawn. And then he using that same rope starts climbing up the side of the wall. So I believe that's a grappling hook.
Do we want to talk about green face Lobo?
Yeah, he's also like lime green, like not even like
the room is just. The room is just full of weaponry and D&D kit. So we're assuming he grabbed it somewhere from in there because his lasso didn't have a grappling hook on it. And he's not wearing a lasso.
Yeah.
Or lariat.
And then as he's swinging on the rope, he says, please defeat you. And like, I don't remember him doing as many puns, but like the last half of his book, he suddenly got really into puns.
I love it though. It makes him a true hero of like the Spider-Man ilk. If we're going to start throwing puns all the time, or dad jokes, if you prefer.
So Maria's like, "Hey, no, please take me with you." He forced me to stay. The king grabs her with a sword, said, "Come on down," or the girl gets it. And so, of course, Lobo, being a good hero, says, "I can't risk her life to save my own." But he notices that the rope that with the chandelier has actually managed to make its way around the king's ankle. And so he grabs the rope and yanks on it and knocks the king over. And then he tells Maria to get out of here. So he whistles for midnight. They'll close the bridge. So Maria and Lobo ride on midnight and jump over the drawbridge as it's being pulled up and land on the other side. So the king's men mount up and go in pursuit. And the king says, hold your fire. There's someone riding up. And it turns out it's the sheriff and his posse on the other side. So the king and his men are on one side. The sheriff and his posse on the other side. Lobo and Maria are in the middle. And the sheriff and king's like, Lobo kidnapped this girl. And she's like, no, it's not true. And king just shoots her. Now,
Jesus.
The sheriff says she's hurt bad, but she'll live. The words "but she'll live" are kind of crammed into the bottom of the word balloon in a way that really feels like someone said, no, you can't just murder the Spanish girl and walk away.
Editorial steps in.
We never see her again.
editorial stepped in and said, we can't do that in this comic.
Right, because the two balloons, the balloons on either side of that balloon have a lot more space at the bottom, and that one doesn't. Yeah, you're right. Editorial stepped in and said, we're adding a line here.
You know what else I bet they said too?
What?
Yahoo!
Yahoo! And then the bane of every Western, the iconic trope, the thing that scarred me for life and made me think that I was going to have much more problem with this than I actually did in my life. King falls into quicksand.
Oh, it's the best.
And he's like, I'll pay anything, just get me out of here. And so Lobo gets a lasso, ties it to Midnight, and Midnight and him pull a king out of the quicksand, and is like, I'll pay you anything. It's like, Lobo, great line. You don't look to me like anybody that could do anything for anybody, which is actually a great line. But I think there might be somebody who might be able to do something for you, like put you in your place. And then the king's like, you're not gonna take me anywhere. And so he tries to pull his gun out and shoot him. It's like, ha, I knew you weren't gonna go quietly. I'm gonna punch him again, and I'm gonna call him a Jasper, and then I'm gonna throw him on top of Midnight.
Oh god.
And
it's
then
a right punch this time, though, I think.
It is right punch, yep. Because you have extras. So he takes him back to the sheriff, and the sheriff's like, we owe you an apology. The king's like, I'll get you for the last thing I do. You and your crazy dog too. And then one of the deputies is like, should we take him in? And it's like, he may be wanted, but I just couldn't make myself take him in. He tells me he's been wronged, and something else tells me that when he'll be back, it'll be on the side of the law. That's the end.
Literally forever.
And then there's some ads for toy soldiers and stamps and a Daisy BB gun, because it was the 60s and regulation didn't exist.
Growing up, Eddie, I had a BB gun. I was born after the 60s, and I had a BB gun as a young kid.
I didn't say that. Regulations didn't exist in the 70s either.
And a pellet one. It was after that too, my friend.
But anyway, that is issue 2.
Lobo, the lone wolf. Branded for life, Lobo.
Branded for life.
Who rides a devil horse, Midnight.
Issue 2's definitely the feel of issue 1. I still loved it. I still think it's a great comic. I'm still enjoying it. I see your point of maybe at some point in the middle of making this, they realized that issue 1 was not selling. And so maybe it's bloody mindedness or nights and weekends they were putting this together because someone involved in the project really felt like it needed to get out there. But there's tons of coloring mistakes. Like I did say that I do feel like the coloring maybe has faded. It's like the lightness of the color I still stand by. But you're right. There's like just one time he's purple, one time he's green, one time it's like one guy is mistakenly colored as Lobo. At least the colorist stopped giving a shit about this comic, and certainly some of the quality of the art did take a tip, particularly in the back half of the book.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think they found out, unfortunately, that it was going to get canceled, and they were like, "Fuck, we're already this far, might as well finish it." But it lost like some of the momentum it had.
Yeah,
it's still a solid read, though.
But Lobo fighting a guy literally called the King of the West, who has a castle and fights with medieval weaponry. Just exactly the right level of bullshit that I wanted in a comic like this. It's just the right level of campy. But Lobo, like we said repeatedly, the comic has room for a deeper read if you want it to be there. And everything that happens is just on the right level of potentially plausible. Like it could be a British guy who went to the West and set himself up as a king and, had these delusions. And because we know rich people in America who had castles moved over to the US at their own expense. Right. Having the kind of guy that like going, I know you use guns, so you're going to fight with weaponry. I've trained in this because I'm rich and nothing else to do. All of these things could happen.
And we're solidly like in 1866, which is really possible.
Yeah, that's true. Because like he may just straight up be British. I mean, he could have come over, be one, and just settled up there. Could have built a castle there. We don't know, right? So like, yeah, it's all plausible, but it is also recognizably uh, a Western adventure comic with more than a smidge of superhero DNA in it, and
Yeah.
it very much feels like this is trying to be like a slightly grittier Lone Ranger.
So if Lobo was actually get a longer run, we'd say like a 50 issue run, how could they have done it? Where could they have gone with the comic? Because we're 2 issues in now, and they had like origin story, and we already changed the type of Western we're telling by issue
Right,
2.
right. I feel like so I have two answers. Like the answer of if this had continued in the '60s, it would have been very episodic, right? Each issue would have been some form of Lobo finds some kind of inequity, deals with it throughout the course of the issue, and they're largely standalone issues. Maybe you bring certain character, maybe Maria comes back after she wasn't totally killed. Maybe the 50-year-old rancher boy comes back. I don't know. Maybe you have the occasional recurring character, but otherwise they would be kind of just nice standalone adventures. Um, and then maybe around like the big anniversary issues like 50 or whatnot, maybe you have something like tease the idea that Lobo actually gets a chance to prove himself, and then that gets taken away from him.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's how it happened in the '60s. If I were to redo it now as a 50 issue run, um, first of all, that origin story would take like easily 4 or 5 issues to do, in a modern style. Um, but then I think I would take the guy who framed him and make him a long running character that keeps coming back, and make it kind of like the fugitive, and you keep trying to track down the one person who set you up. And then in the midst of that, you have other adventures that last for a few issues here and there. Um, and then I would probably write it in a way that would steadily push Lobo towards making that hard decision. And then maybe around issue 20-ish, he actually does fire a gun, and it has even worse consequences for him. Um, so like, I think there could be a very good modern style, still an action adventure, but also
Yeah.
thriller dynamic for this. This character with a ton of possibility.
Cool. Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, that's it for this run. I'm glad we did it because I mean, obviously, it's a speechless run in the sense that we're talking about comics. We're talking about the way that we've been talking about comics, but I don't think it's possible to talk about this without having the context of all the Western stuff we've seen to now.
Absolutely. And funnily enough, it is a speechless run, but this feels the closest that we've had to genreless and speechless being merged into one.
Right. Yes. Because even with the superhero run, we didn't do this, and I think it was because a lot of our arguments, frankly, were um, these things don't quite in the process of translating one to the other, something gets lost in each direction, and so like it never quite made sense to connect them. But this is drawing from that history of television and movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s to make these comics, and also, to be honest, even the Western comics of the 40s and 50s. So it's drawing from those are all inspiring, drawing from each other. Whereas superheroes start explicitly as a comic medium and then got adapted. This is no, these things were in parallel the whole time and developed their own tropes, but were also cross pollinating each other. So it feels more part of the genre as a collective than I think even we did with superheroes.
I think the Sherlock Holmes run probably could have been the only other one we could have done something like this with.
True, but we did kind of do that with the balancing between radio and TV. Because again, the radio Sherlock Holmes and the television Sherlock Holmes are kind of contemporaneous. Sorry, the
Yeah.
movie Sherlock Holmes, specifically, obviously Basil Rathbone jumping between the two. But yeah, if we had done some of the Sherlock Holmes comics, like DC did a couple of Sherlock Holmes comics in the '60s, I want to say, maybe it was the '70s, and there have been some later Sherlock Holmes comics. And you're right, they would have been in a similar vein. But this is a good digression because I mean, honestly, if we're going to do Western comics, this is a really good one for our specific purposes to look at. But there are a ton of other Western comics of a very wide variety of quality.
So I guess we will now go back to what we previously said we were going to do after all that.
Right. Which, since we record out of order, I've forgotten which episode's next. But we told you last time, so you'll find out in a minute.
Which is why I actively didn't say, because I couldn't remember off the top of my head, because we've recorded some things out of order now. So I'm like, ooh, maybe it's that one.
Right. But thank you for letting us do this quick digression. Again, I think it was super worth it. And if you're also curious, this is one of the rare times where, like, it's totally free. You can find the Lobo comics pretty easily online. Go read the scans like we did. Spend $1 if you want to get the remaster versions, maybe with the better colors. I don't know if they fixed the colors. I should go back and check that. That might be interesting to see. But otherwise, if people want to talk to you, Chris, about Lobo, either Lobo, where do they find you online?
Darker_Hugh. You can jump in Discord. You could, you know what? You could come to Dice Camp. Yeah, Mastodon. I forgot what it's called. Wow, like that's
Mastocamp.
That's how often I'm on there. But yeah, you can come talk to me there about Lobo Issue. What about you?
You can find me at pugsteady.com. That's my website. That's where you can find me on Blue Sky. I don't think I use Mastodon account anymore. Maybe I need to look back into that. But social media is just poison and terrible.
Dead.
Yeah. Or come to the Discord, where I think either Chris and I would love to talk about Lobo in more depth, or even just Western comics. I'm now at a point where I'm looking into other Western comics. Oni Press has recently revived the EC Comics brand, and they did a one-off Western EC comic, which was quite good. So the Western comics starting to come back, and I find that interesting.
Are we going to jump into like the Two-Fisted Kid from Marvel? Is that what we're going to do next?
Yeah, we could do Two-Fisted Kid. We could do Cobalt Kid. We could do what's the DC one with the Scar? I've forgotten his name.
Jonah Hex.
Jonah Hex. Yeah.
Just saying.
There are
if
a lot
people
of,
want us to do that, let us know.
Yeah. But otherwise, we will get back to Westerns. See you then. Yahoo!